Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you coming back and giving this next entry a shot. Today I'm going to talk about something that goes very broad, and it's going to be about the Phase 4 and Phase 5 announcements made by Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige. It's been about a little over a week so far since the video dropped on YouTube and on all these other channels. And now we have an idea of what's to come. And for me, it's a big deal because I was in limbo for so long. I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I always felt that Far From Home, the Spider-Man that ended Phase 3, I always thought that should have been more of a prequel than a sequel. Like, a sequel to Spider-Man, but a prequel to the Endgame. Like, how in Endgame, or better yet, even in Infinity War, I should say, in Infinity War, when Spider-Man's introduction is him on the school bus, I know there were a bunch of rumors floating around that school bus was meant to be them coming back from their trip, which is where Far From Home sort of takes place. So that's why I thought Far From Home was going to be the events that happened directly before Infinity War, but then it turns out it was directly after, so it is still part of Phase 3 regardless. So with that ending Phase 3, I haven't heard anything about Phase 4 or what their plans were. I know I heard a bunch of other things, but we never got an official timeline like they gave us when they announced Phase 2 and 3, and leading up to what Infinity War was going to be, and all that anticipation. What I do like about these next two phases is that none of it really seems to involve the Avengers. This is kind of more universe building for what they're trying to do, at least from what I can see. I don't see anything that's really gonna lead into anything new Avengers. This is kind of building up, I guess, the team again, or just kind of reiterating some stories, kind of trying to make more with their universe. And especially with Disney buying out Fox, they now have all of this property back, so it's nice to see some of these things come to light. So let's get into it really quick with first Phase 4. And of course, Phase 4 starts with Black Widow, which to me, Black Widow should have been part of Phase 3, but what do I know? I do like that she's finally getting her own movie, and it does look great. We've been seeing trailers for it for like 6 months, 7 months. But of course, with the pandemic going on, nobody's able to really get to the movies. I've been to one movie in the last 8 months, and that was because being that I live in Pennsylvania, when we got lifted from like being in red to green, we were so happy. So the movie theaters opened. They were taking all the precautions. We took all the precautions. We went out and we saw a movie for the first time in months, and it felt so good. But people like DC, people like Marvel, a lot of these production companies, they're not taking the chance of releasing things in theaters. So they're releasing them to streaming, from what I can tell. I know the new Wonder Woman movie is going to get released on HBO Max. I believe Black Widow's going to Disney+. I'm not sure. All I know is I can't wait for it. I'm looking forward to a Black Widow film, and that's going to be what kind of kicks off Phase 4. Now let's talk about what else they have in Phase 4. They also have Shang-Chi, which Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the actual name of it. And I don't know much about him. I do know that as far as what what he is concerned to be in the Marvel comics, is that he was kind of their iteration of like Bruce Lee in a way, I believe. Don't 100% quote me on that. I know there is a character that's like that. I think it's Shang-Chi. I don't know much about him, but I'm going to enjoy it because I think they'll do good on incorporating some of these no-names that may have a very small fan base, just like they did with Doctor Strange. Speaking of Doctor Strange, here's another movie that's coming out for Phase 4, is Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, and I'm looking forward to more of that. Like, I think what they did with Doctor Strange was, no matter whether you were a fan of him, you loved what they did with that film. If you weren't a fan of him, you became a fan of him because of that film. I know I did, and I'm looking forward to them being more Doctor Strange films, and hopefully this does justice to what they've built up for that. Now, I do think that there's one thing that they kind of missed the opportunity on. I don't know if they'll bring it back, but I do believe Dormammu, who was the main villain in Doctor Strange, he didn't really beat him, he just kind of outsmarted him. So they might bring him back because they do need somebody that's a little bit more of a big bad after Thanos. But again, this goes back to me saying they don't really seem to have anything Avengers lined up yet. They're just kind of putting in these new characters to fill space, to kind of make the Avengers bigger because they can do that. With the Doctor Strange film, there's also another Spider-Man movie coming out. All the rumors about it being Into the Spider-Verse, which I would love. I love the idea of getting the 3 Spider-Men over the generations together in one film. I will say this now, and I will say it to the end of time. Andrew Garfield will be my favorite Spider-Man. I never liked the Tobey Maguire films. I have my own personal reasons why I don't. Spider-Man 2, by Sam Raimi with Tobey Maguire, that wasn't too bad because they did Dr. Octopus well. And I believe the Amazing Spider-Man films with Andrew Garfield, they were going on a good path with that. But, of course, they just winded up shitting the bed because that's what they do. They did it with the first trilogy. They do that with this new setup. At least they're making a deal with Marvel so they get some kind of money. But now Spider-Man is in the Marvel Universe, which is what makes all of us happy. So hopefully this new Spider-Man is going to be good as well. Another one coming up is the Eternals. I don't know much about them either, so I can't really make too many comments. I know there's a slight connection to the Inhumans, and the only thing I know about the Inhumans is a friend of mine did a cosplay once for Comic-Con for Black Bolt. And I know Black Bolt is like the most powerful member of the Inhumans, and of course he's only on whatever side of the universe they're on, and not on our side, so we don't get to see Black Bolt. But maybe, I do know they tried to do the Inhumans as a TV show. It wasn't too successful, but maybe they'll try to revive it like they try to do other shows, which I'll get into in a little bit. But the final movie leading up Phase 4 will be Thor: Love and Thunder. So that makes 6 films. So that's usually what they do. 6 to 7 films for each phase. So Thor: Love and Thunder, I love the Thor character. I love the Thor movies. I don't care what anybody says. I think they're all great. And I would have to say my least favorite would be Thor: Ragnarok because I know what they said. They tried to make it a buddy cop film. But that's not who Thor is to me, so I kind of had a disliking to that one. But that's just my opinion. Either way, it was just as good as the other two, and I think the first 2 films are great. And I'm looking forward to whatever Love and Thunder is going to be about, because I do feel like since they didn't really do anything to get rid of Thor, that it's nice that they're still trying to make things up for him and keep him in the story. And I look forward to what they're doing with that. Now, let's go on to some interesting things they're doing for Phase 4, because since they're incorporating Disney+, they're incorporating television shows. So they have a bunch of TV shows coming out that's strictly on Disney+ as of right now, and they're meant to be part of the same universe. One of them being Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I don't mind. I think that's a good idea for a TV show. I think it would be better maybe as a movie, but I guess maybe they don't think it would last as a movie. Maybe they don't feel like those 2 characters can hold up a movie like Captain America can. I don't know, but it looks good. I never really understood why they were doing WandaVision. It looked weird to me, but then they finally dropped the trailer for it at the announcement, and I was like, okay, this actually looks pretty good. I'm wondering, this might be what happens when Wanda and Vision disappear in between Infinity War and Civil War. Maybe that's kind of a thing that they're trying to go with, which I believe is what Black Widow is too. Black Widow is what happens between not just Civil War, but I think Winter Soldier and Civil War, maybe? Not 100% sure, but yeah, I'm looking forward to what WandaVision brings now. Loki looks fun. It's kind of playing off of what they built, or what they kind of left off in the, what they left off in the movie, where he kind of gets the Tesseract and disappears. And I'm curious to see where they go with that. I'm not 100% sure what the storyline's going to be, but I guess that's a good way to say not kill off Loki and kind of bring him back. So, looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to a Hawkeye TV show. I think that's going to be great. I think Hawkeye deserves way more attention. I'm also looking forward to Moon Knight. Again, I don't know much about Moon Knight. All I know is another friend of mine did a cosplay for a Comic-Con one year, and he went as Moon Knight. And he told me a couple of little things, but I really don't know too much about him. But I do feel like he is a cool character, and he should be incorporated. So I'm glad they're doing that. They're also incorporating She-Hulk, and from what he said in the announcement, they're bringing back the Abomination, which is great. I think the Abomination is one of the best Hulk villains, and bringing him back finally and kind of acknowledging that that movie exists in the universe. I mean, of course they acknowledge it, here and there, but, because that film was with, what's his name, Edward Norton, and then he was replaced with Mark Ruffalo. It's nice to see that they're still trying to incorporate these things where it still exists in the same universe, but bringing it back and not necessarily giving Hulk too much of the spotlight, which I do feel like Mark Ruffalo deserves his own film outright. But it's nice to see that She-Hulk is getting some attention and the Abomination is coming back. I do like that. They also made the announcement that Ms. Marvel is getting her own TV show, which I appreciate that as well, being that I didn't know who that was until the video game came out back in September, and I haven't even played the video game yet, but I do hear that she's pretty cool, and it's nice to see kind of more of her story and kind of her getting brought into the universe. I didn't know too much about her character, like I said. It looks like she's a lot like Mr. Fantastic, which we'll get into Mr. Fantastic a little bit later. But yeah, I don't get why the incorporation of another superhero with similar powers. But then again, it's going to happen. You're going to have things duplicate here and there. But I am looking forward to Ms. Marvel. A big one I'm looking forward to is the What If universe. And it looks animated, which I think is the right way to go. But this idea of the What If universe and kind of flipping the script on some of these stories. If there's one thing that Marvel has that's so entertaining that they haven't capitalized on, it's the What If universe. One of my favorite What If storylines is the What If universe where the Punisher goes after superheroes. Like, instead of his family dying from like a mob, like a gang war, they die during a fight that mutants are having. Like, it's the X-Men versus, Magneto and all those people, and his family winds up dying in the middle of one of those battles. So then he goes and he decides that he's going to kill all mutants. So he goes on this killing spree and starts killing, like, Spider-Man and Cyclops and Jean Grey and Magneto. Like, he finds ways to kill all of them. And I haven't read it in years, so I might be a little off by that, but I do believe that's pretty much the premise of it, and I do hope that gets incorporated into the What If universe at some point. But I am still looking forward to it regardless. So now, that winds up Phase 4 and what they had planned for there. So they have a nice mixture of not just movies we all want, but also of TV shows that are going to be incorporated, and they're trying to build this universe. And they continue that with Phase 5. Phase 5 is meant to bring on a Captain Marvel 2, which I'm looking forward to. It's bringing on a third Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I'm looking forward to that as well. I think the first two films were great, and I'm looking forward to that one. It's also bringing on a third Guardians, and, I'm not going to say that they're bad. They're good films. I'm not a fan too much. I will still see it because I know I have to see it for the overall universe, but I'm not the biggest fan. They're also doing something like a Guardians holiday special. I think that's kind of weird, but, Disney Plus content and connecting with the universe, they can do whatever they want now. They're that big. Marvel's that big that they can do whatever they want. But one thing I am looking forward to is the Black Panther 2 sequel as well, and I am kind of upset a little bit just because, I know, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Nobody will do Black Panther better than he did, and it's because he is the first live-action iteration of it. So he is the level that you have to meet, and he did it great. And they already said they plan on not recasting him, which is perfect. But they still have to continue with the films. And a lot of people are saying that Shuri, I can't remember the actress's name right now, but Shuri, the Black Panther's sister, should be the next Black Panther. Which I agree with. That makes the most logical sense. Maybe have it start off with some kind of battle where he dies and then Shuri takes over. It does kind of maybe take away a little bit from what they try to build and how the Black Panther is created in the first film, but I think they can work their way around that in a way. Maybe she kind of goes against tradition and then becomes Black Panther, and everybody just accepts it because she does such a good job at it. And I think she would do a good job at it. She's super intelligent. The only issue is that actress. I just read something a couple of days ago. that actress is apparently in really hot water right now because she's apparently come out as being an anti-vaxxer, and if she's like spewing stuff that Marvel Studios and Disney doesn't really want any bad publicity about, they might X her. I'm not sure exactly what is happening with that. I do remember hearing that she had to issue some kind of apology or something. I don't remember exactly. All I know is when I saw that, it did kind of worry me because I do know that because even though she has people that agree with her, she's going to have a lot of people that disagree with her. And any negative publicity... See, that's the thing. Like, Quentin Tarantino was a great director. He said, whether it's good publicity or bad publicity, people are talking about your film. Disney wants no bad publicity. And being that this actress is an outspoken anti-vaxxer, that might bring some bad publicity. So they might try to do something to kind of counteract that. But, so right now, those are the movies they have planned. Also, another big one for Phase 5. And I know it's a couple of years down the line. This is all films that are meant to be like late 2021 or 2022. But they have the Fantastic Four. I'm so happy they got the Fantastic Four back because the Fantastic Four is definitely a franchise that needs a reboot, but it needs a reboot within a production company that actually cares. Like, I feel like anybody who was doing it beforehand, they were just doing it as cash grabs because they know people want Fantastic Four movies. Marvel's going to do so good bringing them back in and reincorporating, Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. Like, the fact that they didn't have them to start this off with, and they're not getting them, not just 23 movies later, but this is 5 phases later. This isn't getting incorporated until Phase 5 because they now have to write in how they're going to introduce them. And that sucks because you're talking another 6 movies for Phase 4. Who knows when it's going to come out in Phase 5? So you're talking about 30 movies down the pipeline. You're finally getting the family that kind of started Marvel. And I know they're going to do a good job at it, and my fingers are crossed that it comes out better than any of the other Fantastic Fours we've seen, and that the incorporation is spot on with what not only Marvel Universe deserves, but what the Fantastic Four deserves. And also, they have shows for Phase 5 as well. They've got Secret Invasion coming out, which I think is going to be pretty cool. They got Ironheart, which I think will be great as well. I love that it's coming out later, so they're kind of letting some time kind of die down. There really is no Iron Man, and then boom, here comes Ironheart, which, I mean, I do feel like it could come a little earlier, but if they want to push it to a bit later, that's fine too. They still have to make it, so who knows when they actually make it, produce it, edit it, and release it, where it falls in the storyline time-wise. You know what I mean? Armor Wars is coming out, which is going to be a War Machine TV show. I'm looking forward to that. But the real big one I'm looking forward to for Phase 5 is Blade. I've needed Blade to actually get incorporated into the Marvel Universe for so long. I think Blade is such a great character, and he was one of the first real comic book characters to get a real push in films and set the tone for the rest of these films. Like, if it wasn't for the success of Blade, you wouldn't have seen a lot of these other films get the pushes they did. And I'm not even talking just the Batman movies or the Spider-Man movies. I'm pretty sure the first Blade is around the same time, if not before some of those. Blade is really a trademark for what it is that created the comic book era that we see now. And maybe even X-Men could also be credited to that, but Blade will always be my favorite. I think he's a great character. I think the films were great. I think Wesley Snipes was great. But it does need a reboot just to introduce it into the universe that Marvel is building. So I'm glad they're finally doing that. So Phase 5 has a bit shorter of a list than Phase 4. And of course, they never announced a Phase 6, which usually, from what you know, 3 phases is what they do. And then by the 3rd phase, that's when the big hitters come in. But again, no Avengers shout-outs either. So I don't know what they're planning to do with Avengers. I don't know what they're planning on doing when it comes to introducing another film, if they plan on doing any more Avengers in that sense. They also have some other shows that they didn't really take any mention to. There's The Runaways, which has apparently been really successful on Hulu. I don't know how that gets incorporated. I know the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show has been going for a long time. I don't know if that's canceled or not, but I do believe that's still going. They have a show called Hailstorm, or Hailstrom, I should say. That's also a Hulu show. That came out this year. and I believe it was pretty successful. Don't know what it's about. But what I do know is Cloak and Dagger. I have heard about that for a while. That's got 2 seasons on Freeform. Didn't really hear much about that. And again, these are shows that I don't know if they're incorporating into the universe at all. I don't know if they exist. It would be nice if they could bring everything to kind of one sector almost, which is why I would like them to announce something about the Defenders. Everybody was talking about the Defenders for so long because Netflix was doing such a good job. They did Luke Cage, they did Iron Fist, Daredevil. Netflix's Daredevil, it was amazing. If there's 3 shows that really made the Netflix Marvel Universe, it was Daredevil, Punisher, Jessica Jones. Daredevil and Jessica Jones were the only 2 to get 3 seasons, a 3-season run. Luke Cage was good. I didn't mind where they took it. I do believe it ended on a good note, whereas if they wanted to continue it, they probably could have done so off of how the 2nd season ended. But being that it was canceled, it was still a good ending in that sense. But these are characters that they have their own little universe. Like, what's the joke that goes floating around the internet? Like, Thor protects Asgard, Iron Man protects New York, Captain America protects America, and what does the Defenders protect? These 3 blocks. And I get it, it's funny, but I mean, they are big characters like Punisher, Daredevil. These are big dudes in the overall, like, Marvel universe. You know what I'm saying? Daredevil has teamed up a lot with, like, Spider-Man, and Punisher has gone into a lot of storylines with Black Widow and Captain America, and I feel like they need to bring them back in some way. I did just read earlier today that John Bernthal, who is the Punisher in the Netflix series, he's in talks of coming back. So I do hope they revise that. I hope they revise Jessica Jones. I hope they revive Daredevil. And I hope they just move off of what was already built. I hope they don't reboot it. I just want them to add more. Like, give us more of the Defenders. Like, we deserve more Defenders in the universe. But really, if I had to narrow it down to the 3 things that I'm looking forward to the most, it would be a Blade TV show, it would be the Fantastic Four film, and it would be the prospects of what this now leads, because they're just giving us 2 phases. They're not giving us what a Phase 6 would hold, what New Avengers would hold. They're not giving us where the universe is going. They're not telling us who the next big bad is. If they're incorporating Fantastic Four, is it Doctor Doom? I think bringing Doctor Doom in would be great. I think Doctor Doom is a villain that's on the same level as Thanos, especially depending on which era of the comics you read in. There are certain storylines where Doctor Doom is so good at, well, not good, but like, so he's like bad, but it's like it's done in such a good way that it could even be better than Thanos. And yes, they did a great job with Thanos. I'm not trying to downplay that, but they need something else. They need to, like, keep going with that hype. And I think Doctor Doom might be a good path. Maybe Dormammu coming back would be a good path. Maybe even Galactus, since they're doing the Fantastic Four as well. Galactus could incorporate that. You know, if they have Fantastic Four, you know they have the Silver Surfer, so you know that's going to get brought back soon too. So I'm looking forward to what they have, and hopefully after this year, if everything turns out to be successful as they want it, then maybe at the end of the year we'll hear some stuff about Phase 6. So let's just be thankful that Phase 4 is coming and they have so much content coming after not hearing things for so long. Like, it's been months since I've heard anything, and I can't wait for Phase 4 to kick off. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the listen, and I appreciate you coming. I'll catch you in the next one.